Hello, America. Hello, black people slash white device. The nature of debate contains quality slash qualities, aspect slash aspects, and in is nature as criminal insidiousness slash hyper criminal insidiousness. I am not a lawyer, but many Americans, we all agree at once about things that people will jump in and pretend they don't agree about relative to treatments and uses of words like policies, well, relative to treatments and uses of words like emotions and use of names. So not just hearsay or the difference between that. Names A through Z are recorded, affected, in other words, used by a method that measures and maintains other communicated for James Madison's plan and the founders with him and behind his plan that George Washington agreed to help and to use his plan. That's what enabled, besides nature itself, makes everyone want to have an evolution, a revolution, when they had criminally foreign influence, sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly too, northern colonies and southern colonies. And even though those countries, those whatever they were forms of, those governments, those systems of the human system body, A through Z, they have been systems tactile from the hyper-native one. Nature itself, the value of the Constitution unabridged, shows us the difference between positive as criminal insidiousness nature or positive that's also positive onto nature's system. Nature has an identity that it shows us. It is bound 5 ways, distinctly from how it is grouped, bound 3 ways. And that is to the smallest thing, still manifest. Cell C, cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall slash S. So when you observe through a microscope, like a translucent, and biology classes, they'll give you usually a tomato because a tomato is basically translucent. So you can see the cell body, cell nucleus. It's hard to see it exactly, but it has value, distinct from the body itself, and how that is relevant where the cell wall slash S connect, and they all parts of it are an appreciation of gases and their value partially being clear, and of water and of its elements. And one of the things they realized about positive, because the ancients went about positive and negative, not leaving out the difference between positive and negative as a criminal insidiousness nature of positive. But this is per nature's definition of criminal insidiousness. And so we know that those laws entrenched had representatives of the law formally. They had representatives of the law as private, like lawyers, and or anyone else, and whether they're on trial or not. But we know also we could observe all parts of all sides of criminal and of civil cases are being have been used remotely, simultaneously, criminally foreign influence slash tactically delusions raw. This breaching method forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded collusions with everyone with its use slash S of all location slash S. And so there are logistical impositions upon every location, area, and state, every single place this human species body is. And nature's demonstrations of the real worst cause of it, that is measured and maintained, blamed on other things, others yourselves. How this is self-valued is relative to where and how this breaching method knew that there would be campuses, schools, the forms of it. There would be exceptions like homeschool, and it could employ them to as needs and natures, and through fake motivations, where everything it did and does, like keep self-value roles, styles, needs, and natures, pretending other, regarding how it is replaced what our founders communicated to communicate for themselves. And about the plan of James Madison, relative, because that's what caused the ability to have protests against the tea tax. In other words, people didn't have, even if it was in other words, there was slavery entrenched north and south. There's things more important than tea. But if anyone spoke up about even building houses better than the suburbs are still manifest to the per their design, so that person would be sentenced. The laws were against it, and it would hurt them and everyone around them. See, those kind of sick, crazy breaching method laws had been sustained. We were supposed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. This would have brought up the torture of him and the fact-cheating nature slavery method. Therefore, further increasingly the physical enslavement slavery method that was entrenched, method singular, that made all roles hyper-additionally, apparent motivations, natures, needs, interests, including increasingly real ones, even themselves missing out how they were and are used remotely, criminally foreign influence. So, and then this perfected uses of theater, criminal insidiousness, natures of integrity. Roles were people that pretend that we need integrity. See, we have to address their delusions too simultaneously. This is why we need experts on this. But the experts on mental health at medical locations, they have been using those locations with foreign and domestic, like with the mental health side. They've been putting fake transcripts, forging foreign and domestic names, also for their uses of the people that pretend that they could defend us as collusions. Then they need examples to pretend they're for us. Oh, well, in other words, that's why they forged Pakistanis' names. But some of the Pakistanis also had collusion too. See, they just keep roles with themselves, with fake integrity of sciences, fake integrity of identities of experts that are shown too to each age of fact-cheating nature. We have little kids that have across America that could had means to discern and tried to communicate, but they were censored because there are applications by mayors' kids and people associated with mayors and neighbors of theirs. All natures of, in other words, of difference, all natures of individuals. It employed self-value uses of those differences, roles with the breaching method that is increasingly using where and how increasingly. Nature communicates we have black pupils, whites of eyes. At the same time, we have the same color eyes, different color eyes. At the same time, non-distinctly from other species bodies, distinctly from them, but also non-distinctly. We have the same quality aspects in nature. There was a species volume system that wasn't invented by us or them. We are each simultaneously manifest, but there was a further hyper-additional, hyper-simultaneous identity of value/value progression that the ancients measured and maintained as that which could and does lead pantheism, that which is inseparable from proper functioning of the republic for which America stands, and for other ancient republics, and for their other roles with exceptions in exception nature, because they're reliant upon the public, and the republic is reliant upon them before the science became criminally foreign influence. The conversation about difference is about that hyper difference, because there's one identity of volume that is every other. In other words, it is not us, but while being us anyway. In other words, but we could be systems tactiliterian. We could stay systems tactiliterian from its own. But it will continue to demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal insidiousness natures. There are people with the name there is a Fred Grisette who sought me out by himself from another part of. He lives near what he. I don't know where he lives now. I believe he's in New York City. He's one of the people involved with a whole bunch of other people, with judges and prosecutors and security at schools, with medical offenders of kids, and with corrections offices and judicial branch offices, planting identity thefts and frauds on and off places with databases, and further with campuses. Your roles with uses of the adults and kids of homeschool as collusions with them too, and of the campuses, including fire and medical campuses, a whole bunch of fire campuses. They run into Harper Hospital to hide life progressions, where and how they have roles of the World Trade Center attack, America, Connecticut, intercities, and wire crimes with the same houses, with Weathersfield Police Department since I was a kid, increasingly roles with other police departments and their family members, retired Weathersfield police chiefs involved with the same houses with wire crimes with them, and with medical offenders forging foreign and domestic names, and fake conversations with me with WFSB. A police chief Citron from Weathersfield is one of the ones with his family recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by people associated with them. Like Mazzucato Bakery is involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. Try to take a picture of themselves walking near you. In other words, and make it look like they know you. Has something to do with their roles with names like Mike Roberts, with names on off the state judicial branch offices, on off the state corrections offices, who have been planting sequence ships and fake things in databases since they were kids. Roles with foreign and domestic military, interstates, state police, people associated with, towing cars, people associated with names next to campuses involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, also with the news, planting evidences on the worst natures of crime scenes, and next to them with those names, involved with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the court's names, including in the Ninth Circuit Court today with the World Trade Center attack in Manhattan. All sides of the case in the court was proven having, from inside the court, effective post-dated documents inside the Ninth Circuit Court. The same ones involved with New Britain Superior Court and Harper Courts before and after the World Trade Center attack forced abuses of the leaders of the kids, and people associated, in other words, with principals' kids, and more than and now abuses of others' kids, like a principal child abuser reportedly in jail for that. I recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed him involved with other police departments and retired Weathersfield police chiefs, and he was standing at the time with Police Chief Cintron, with his family members involved, also with his Jessica Cintron. I never met her. John Maiano, and others associated with Spada. There were people with the name Spada and Delafera who have roles with my neighbors, and their own intimate roles with each other, and roles with foreign and domestic military, planting evidences, like at the end of at corners of streets too, like, and with people on Valley Crest and Weathersfield. Has something to do with the corner of Southstein Highway and Town Line Drive. Has people from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Italy, Germany, other countries, like with the borders, involved collusions with overt criminal enterprises and putting fake things in databases, sequence shifts, fake ties and natures of ties to kids at campuses, because now they put the sense and sensibilities of other people speaking fake. They're also just attaching everyone to faked and changed communications with others. Weathersfield police have been doing this since I was a kid, with the same houses involved with them with predicate acts. There's a Judge Smith and a Judge Killian, further involved with Facebook, with digital, and sexual and medical offenders of kids and elderly and veteran homes with their family members and neighbors. Also with the news media and the difference between the news media, there's a public television, people involved with the Russians and Americans and Ukrainian families on off Central Connecticut State University and New Britain, who have roles along with names along Griswold Street in Wethersfield, who are hiding live progressions tied to them having been strangers and stacked predicate acts of facts and acted tied to it. There's a former Mayor Gold who is increasingly involved with kids and who had roles with various natures of organized crime and body dumping spots. Increasingly, and people with whiting forensics are increasingly involved with wire crimes of the news and with a former Mayor Gold, and who had predicate acts with people planting evidences on all sides of my house and all sides of relatives of mine. In other words, there's a Mike Daly and a Chet Casper who have rules and a Joshua Julian. They're further involved with a whole bunch of people, and Anthony Agman, involved with a whole bunch of foreign and domestic medical families at Hartford Hospital, also with the houses and businesses next to them, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. Yeah, also personally and professionally with judges and prosecutors. On a mass scale, they've been stacking collusions at crime scenes. In other words, so even when people lie to them, they're telling the truth. In other words, there's a problem why people are killing each other like that and stuff like that, and how you can even get away with arguing. The suburbs were designed. The colonists didn't want it. The colonists wanted it to be safer, a better identity relationship to itself, and evolution's fruits, gifts, means its system. Let alone the colonists and the Native Americans together. And the Native Americans are our founders too. That's why I see president/chief. See how the Native Americans, before America's founders were even born, to have a plan, have to hide their true voices or be sensed, that had already been sustained against Native Americans. That had already been sustained against countries A through Z involved with colonization. It had already been sustained against religious founders. The sciences had already been forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to be used by defenses of the natures of debate styles that can't defend themselves without self-valuing how the sciences are abridged. That means the roles with the Constitution's abridgments and with uses of them originally instilled that we should not have to debate. And if we have to debate that with someone, we should have the right to remain silent and to force them onto paper. But they have prevented this since founding for remote uses of their differences that a breaching method knew they could get away with. And the difference between them as collusions, as the interbranch, or the overt criminal enterprises, because the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones, what really formed them, more so was this than more than anything else. Black pupils. We have black pupils' rights of eyes per nature itself. That answers our questions. We know that more true always, a predicate acts with facts delivery system method is one of the things that caused slavery. A method that was entrenched and had been sustained like that caused all kinds of other negative evidential progressions, acts, and natures. Just like the laws that made it crazy to even be found out or thought to be found out, having been speaking about building infrastructure outside of conversations monitored by international at the time. UConn is increasingly leaking roles with people named Violet, involved with all kinds of natures of prosecutions and prosecutors, and roles on the corrections offices and judicial offices that have been intercampuses, criminally foreign use of location /S, roles of predicate acts facts method that they don't even understand the extent of. But they were shown needs and means to do that, where and how. Like, people defend their uses of policies leaving out what our founders communicated for us to understand about how the breaching method, many ways more so than our founders, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded us to be roles with economic systems tactical ulterior from the constitutions unabridged as natures, regardless if it's relative to a colonist, American citizen, or American citizens who is hyper-additionally Native American. In other words, the difference between Native Americans had to fight with Native Americans because the ground was tactically denatured, its identity of relationship to itself, and its means to cause positive value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, means out of nowhere. See, when it rains in the suburbs, the worms used to come up, walk into the puddles, and the birds would feed on that, walk into the bodies of water, which already had like way less fish and wildlife than they used to. Now they're like virtually just, all fake. If they're even standing there, little ponds or whatever like that. Everything is tactically denatured. The suburbs, again, were designed for torture, extortion, and slavery. So when people speak about policies, there is a breaching method in foreign countries and criminal enterprises, etc., can measure and maintain, as the breaching method shows that means it needs to do. In other words, exceptions left out. Exception nature, like the differences between overt criminal enterprises, unions, and private criminal enterprises. They have their time in other countries. In other words, that causes things that rights, lies, state secrets have nothing really secret. In other words, except for the self-valued secrets used as truths for lies relative to where and to how they get away with changing and faking. And worse, anyone who's going to communicate for our founders proper, because little kids know they were given the means to discern there's a sick breaching method against Native Americans they didn't want. There's a sick breaching method against colonists they didn't want, even if those colonists were connected to them. In other words, as them. The breaching method was against everyone. It's the same breaching method against United States citizens, and as Native Americans. In other words, but our syntax, our law treatments, they have stayed abridged. That's forced. The difference of experts has been used tactical ulterior how it was intended to be used by the Constitution unabridged and by our founders, who have their communications replaced by that method which forced syntax collusions, or it would sense. Even if that body was a majority of people, even if it was everyone, all groupings that came from humanity, it also used them remotely before humanity was even born, in ways that even they didn't understand. See, president/chief. So in other words, this is why and how the economics, the math alone, we're not, in other words, we need someone to defend us with the math. The breaching method knew this too. No, they're messing with exceptions. Like, in other words, except for where we need to show the difference between the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and roles with uses of the systems. So this comes to where and how all locations, areas, and states, everywhere the species body is, we have criminal insidiousness natures of logic styles, natures of conviction natures, styles of it. Tactical ulterior from nature's style that is not as criminal insidiousness. This is recorded relative to where and how people lie about what they think to offensively prevent and what they could understand, to offensively prevent people free speech and defenses of ourselves relative to roles the interbranch have with foreign countries and overt criminal enterprises with weapons and with punk games where they make confessions to others and then they have people non-verbally confirm it as roles with the database crimes of the news and lying about their motivations and behavior racketeering on a mass scale. All sides in criminal and civil cases and the court's names and or the difference between that, the news at the same time, names next to the crime scenes, on off judicial and corrections offices, they're self-valued with self-valuing the same sequence shifts. For example, that can be used to show styles of logic and natures of logic that they were already shown they need to hide, standing as criminal insidiousness / hyper-criminal insidiousness. Again, I am not a lawyer, but we could discern this with using nature itself. See, the breaching method made a whole bunch of criminal insidiousness natures. It rolls with the crazy laws before America's founders were born. Juxtaposed criminal enterprises, etc. In other words, nature itself gives us means to answer our questions and to show us when a question is being used to measure and maintain sequence shifts or exploitations of that quality of fact treatment nature, like with time treatments and stuff like that, as collusions. You guys you guys have formal identities of the law of the branches of the government shown needs to hurt each age of fact treatment nature sickly distinctly at science's locations. And this is a method that shows them needs to do a class exploitation method where kids who aren't in the same classes put a fake communications. And even if there's real ones, they change it. So by making little instances where people aren't even in the same class, but they're in the same grade, plant roles of predicate acts with facts, and with uses of confessions relative. Every day, the branches of the government are communicating to names A through Z that they are liars about black and white. And see, but because no one wanted that, the reason why they have these styles of motivations regarding the value of it, regarding motivations that are also being used to screen the breaching method, its roles of motivation. The breaching method is a scientific value that science has been demonstrating to little kids. But those little kids are sensed if they use what was actually recorded. And this from off the thing brings in organ. This is where there are self-value uses worst of standing totally distinct natures of organized crime. A whole bunch of them at the same time, and styles, needs, and natures associated with those names and locations used as roles, as use of others' names, as roles with uses of lie progressions, used to keep other things, others themselves blamed for things the breaching method itself, as a scientific value, used to keep collusions with our founders having communicated to appreciate that as a scientific value, relative as an answer to what caused things like slavery, not our founders. Dear God, the nature of debate. Please follow mandated law. Please do what's right, WFSB. And let's get on to paper the people who had to fake conversations with me, and you faked conversations with me with other people, and you hid what I recorded them doing with the principal, and more roles, more obscure pictures too with social media. Twitter, before the sale of itself to Elon Musk, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, has further FBI roles with it too. with the courts, family members, and prisons families also that were planting evidences with people next to the body dumping spot, real or made up, involved with a serial killer, reported convicted serial killer, like near West Arms Mall. Eric Burgess and others recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Former director of the FBI, names I didn't know all their names yet. I mean, I never spoke with him in person. I saw him in the 2006 district court case. He's one of the names that were involved with judges, prosecutors, his co-defendants, their lawyer, Robert Chevalier. In other words, with planting evidences at West Hartford and next to body dumping spots through time, and with people intercities involved all along Route 3, with the house like a Ray Collo, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. And Eric Oliveri has roles with people and a whole bunch of other people at Trinity College, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also with my previous neighbors, they have roles with people named Cololo and their and intelligence community next to him, tied to him next to the sides of the campuses that have been involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting whole fake transcripts to pretend people are liars when they mention it. That's why they can't get on paper, and they've been falsifying police reports, and the police officers have been switching and forging names. People with the name O'Brien and Cololo have been with multiple police departments and retired Wethersfield police chiefs and their extended family members. There is a Phil Cololo involved increasingly involved with people with whiting forensics, also involved with Facebook and the courts with predicate acts with a Joshua Julian, identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting evidences, and refusing to identify themselves as the rules of foreign and domestic. A whole bunch of names next to the state capitol involved with planting evidences per their roles, with motivations that are apparent, but there's also the breaching methods involvements with this. So people with the name Violet have sequence shifts roles and wire crime acts roles and falsified police reports roles with people named O'Brien and Cololo on my street, and the others I don't know the names of, involved with conversations with them. Like there's people with the name Smith and people on off Town Line Drive, increasingly involved with them with federal evidences crime, including through the differences of ownerships of companies per use of location /S roles. So all natures of different uses were missed. So Facebook recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have roles with Facebook with the Facebook pages of campuses with federal evidences crimes with sexual and medical offenders, and just because they're evidences, and judges and prosecutors and FBI involved. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants and his lawyer, involved also with lawyers of Wethersfield police chiefs, involved with Russians and Ukraine and Koreans. All kinds of psychiatry delusions too. We're going to address black pupils. So don't pretend that one debate was ever free. And so this is why Kamala Harris is trying to say too. Neither we're not going to have anyone be honest about the economics, and no one's going to be honest about or the exceptions. And nature uses both tactically ulterior from styles A through Z. So we have problems just because we in other words, there's more recorded than will be allowed demonstrated by per how America has suburbs that are manifest. They look exactly like the suburbs in Russia and Ukraine. And the suburbs are designed tactically denatured, let alone the cities. This is per that method that forced everyone. The only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. It begins to be criminal and ceaseless natures of positive treatments, roles, needs, natures, styles, as collusions with the negatives, where the breaching method to keep it from discernment. You have to keep its relativity to the positive and negative. And that, that feeder has that criminal insidiousness / hypercriminal insidiousness that has only been allowed to be heard. Otherwise, they attach us to fake words. How they get away with this is how they're stacking fake things in campuses with people acting for other people to record at locations. And how that is motivated, which is recorded also relative to fluency through countries that have shell games with their differences. In other words, everyone blame this, blame it ism. In other words, they waste their time with each campus. Criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions from off those campuses. Collusions, hyper-additionally motivations apparent. Fear God, which actually recorded.